Okay, good afternoon. After 2 years of civil war, the Syrian government still continues to commit atrocities against its people with impunity. The U.S. as well as other world governments do not want to intervene in Syria militarily, but they want their government to pay for the atrocities committed in that country. Several think tanks out there have come up with several ideas on how to deal with the Syrian problem. The one that stands out the most clear to me and the one that most people tend to hang on to is the UN's establishment of a war tribunal to address the crimes in Syria, but it will be ran by the Arab League. In other words, Arab war tribunal ran by Arabs to prosecute Arabs. It sounds good on paper, but I would foresee that one would see some of the same problems that previous war tribunals in the former Yugoslavia, Germany, and most currently Iraq experienced during their time. Ultimately, I really think that the sovereign states to which these crimes were committed, they should have sole responsibility of prosecuting these war criminals once that government that's committed the atrocities has been removed. There are several reasons why I think this should be, but because of time, I'll only address one. And that one point is, who do you charge? Do you charge the soldier on the ground that is committing the atrocity? Do you charge the leader of that soldier that's on the ground committing that atrocity? Do you charge the Ba'ath Party in Syria as a whole? Or do you charge President Assad as a single entity that's responsible for everything that's went down? How you do it? I submit the tribunal would be successful at prosecuting these lower level criminals. But at the same time, as I suggested, the upper tier criminals, President Assad, members of the Ba'ath Party, those people would go virtually untouched, or they would go free altogether. According to the UN Secretary General previous reports that were dated 1993 on the former Yugoslavia, the tribunal only had jurisdiction on personnel that had personnel over natural persons, on which the individual criminal responsibility could be identified. What am I saying when I say this? In other words, if Mr. Sutton, or should I say Private Sutton, was in the Syrian army out there shooting civilians randomly based on guidance that he received from his platoon sergeant or his company commander or the Ba'ath Party, where do you prosecute? Do you prosecute? In all probability, because I'm the lowest person on the totem pole, I would be the one that goes first, and then they work their way up from there rather than going to the source, because Private Sutton does not operate individually. He does not operate without orders. But the question is, where is the dividing line as far as who's culpable? Like I said, this like the war tribunal in 1993 in the former Yugoslavia, it only addressed individual entities. It did not address the whole. It did not address the personnel that were pushing the orders down. Same thing with the war tribunals in Nuremberg. Those tribunals only addressed the personnel that they could see, Goring, and a few other the war criminals, a few other the people that stood out in front committing the atrocities in the name of Hitler and the fatherland. And like I said, the military situation in Syria is fairly identical to the situation in former Yugoslavia. It's chaotic at best. In other words, orders going everywhere. So I'm receiving an order from here, which came from here, which came from another level of influence here. So where's the dividing line? Long story short, it took the Serbian government 2 years to send Slobodan Milosevic, the war criminal behind the ethnic cleanses in the former Yugoslavia, to The Hague. But they only did this after the trial against him in the former Yugoslavia failed to render a guilty verdict. And even then, after he went to The Hague, Slobodan Milosevic died of a heart attack while waiting trial. So a sentence was never, he never received a sentence, he was never judged. Joseph Mengele, aka the Angel of Death. He evaded capture for 34 years after his war crimes in Germany, living an affluent life in Buenos Aires. So again, he lived fairly well. It was never answerable for his crime. And then finally, in closing, like I said, these people should have been judged. Should have been brought before a judge, prosecuted and judged, and rendered a verdict rather than growing old and dying in their beds. Like I said, these two examples reflect the catastrophic failures of war tribunals because of its watered down statutes and articles. The articles in general put everything back on the states anyway to prosecute the offenders. So why don't we just leave this solely to the state to prosecute the criminals? They will most definitely get swift justice. They would not sit here and wait 2, 4, 6, 30 years down the line to prosecute them because they're already there. And even if they were to flee, the states are still responsible to go get them. So that would be working between one sovereign state, between another one, to get them. The judgment by an international military tribunal in Nuremberg stated this, and I quote, "Crimes against international law are committed by men, not by abstract entities, and only by punishing individuals who commit such crimes can the provisions of international law be enforced." I would go farther to say, in the case of Syria, let the sovereign countries prosecute their war criminals themselves. Even with minimal oversight by the UN and the Arab League, a better result will be achieved. Thank you for your time.